Buffalo just dropped 31 points on the Cleveland Browns and made it look almost too easy. But if you think the final score is the whole story, think again. Because when you go frame by frame through the coach's film, the real film, the stuff the average fan never sees, a completely different narrative starts to unfold. There's a rookie who might already be the best pass rusher on the entire roster. There's a defensive back who hasn't been thrown at a single time all preseason, and there's a reason for that. And there's an offensive lineman who just went from developmental prospect to walking boot on Monday, which is never the sentence you want to hear about your guy. So grab a seat, because we are breaking down every single standout, every red flag, and every roster battle brewing inside One Bills Drive right now. Let's start with the guy who might be the most exciting discovery of the entire preseason. Buffalo's first pick in this year's draft, a pass rusher out of Clemson, stepped onto the field and looked like a man who belonged. Early in the game, there were some rookie mistakes. He got sucked too far inside, chasing rollout passes and lost contain a couple of times. The kind of thing that happens to basically every young edge rusher in the league. But here's what should get Bills fans excited. He adjusted. By the second half, with a different quarterback under center for Cleveland, that same mistake didn't happen again. That's coachability. That's a young player processing information in real time and fixing it before halftime, which is exactly what you want to see from a building block on the defensive line. And then there were the pass rush reps. Two of them in particular were the kind of plays that get scouts and coaches buzzing. On one snap, he collapsed the pocket with pure power, firing off the football, absorbing a chip from the tight end and running his feet straight through the offensive line. He got a hand on the quarterback's head, and although the passer managed to duck away and escape, the pressure was so disruptive that a holding penalty got called on the play anyway. That's a rep that on another day ends in a sack. Then, just a little while later, he did it again, this time with a rip move so clean he got right underneath the tackle's pads and hit the quarterback as the ball was coming out. Two legitimate translatable pass rushing wins in one game. He's still got work to do filling out his frame and adding strength, but make no mistake, this is a player trending in the right direction, and fast. Now let's talk about the guy who might be the quietest success story of the whole preseason. Buffalo's second-round pick was a cornerback out of Ohio State, and through 2 straight preseason games, he has not been targeted a single time. Not once. In this league, that is not an accident. That is a receiver quality problem for opposing quarterbacks, because they simply don't trust throwing his way. What stood out on tape wasn't just that he avoided getting picked on, it was how he did it. Press coverage lives and dies on technique, and this rookie showed off a real toolbox, sometimes jamming receivers hard at the line, other times using a softer, more subtle press where he simply crowds the receiver with his frame and disrupts timing without ever really hitting them. Against one of this draft class's most explosive burners, he stayed locked in phase the entire route. Even when he was trailing slightly behind, matching stride for stride like a veteran. But the single most impressive moment for this cornerback wasn't even in coverage, it was in run support. He came downhill and delivered a picture-perfect open field tackle, extending outside his frame to bring down a ball carrier who had nowhere else to go. And here's why that rep matters more than it might seem. Buffalo's new defensive scheme under their coordinator is expected to run a lot of 5-man fronts, which effectively creates 7 and even 8-man boxes. That's going to clog things up between the tackles, which means more runs are going to get spilled out toward the edges. When that happens, your cornerbacks have to be able to tackle in space, or those runs turn into chunk plays. This rookie just proved on tape that he can do exactly that. Unfortunately, not every rookie storyline is a feel-good one. Buffalo's 4th-round offensive tackle out of Boston College had, to put it bluntly, a rough outing. He played right tackle for 17 snaps before heading to the medical tent, and by Monday's practice, he was spotted in a walking boot. On the field before that, he surrendered another sack, and the technique simply wasn't there. He's got the size, the athleticism, and the raw power teams covet, but right now those tools aren't translating into playable reps. Part of the issue seems to be scheme-related. Buffalo's offensive line coach is running almost exclusively jump sets with his tackles, an aggressive technique designed to quickly cut off the rusher's angle and get hands-on fast. It's a high-variance approach that rewards footwork and angle calculation, and right now that's exactly where this young tackle is struggling. There's a real chance the team stashes him on injured reserve to let him develop without burning a valuable roster spot, but as of right now, he is not a playable NFL tackle. We'll know more once the full extent of that injury comes out. One more names didn't even see the field. Buffalo's speedy wide receiver draft pick has yet to play a single preseason snap, which is starting to raise real questions. Everyone assumes he'll make the roster, but at some point, fans and coaches alike are going to need actual game reps to evaluate him before final cuts. Moving to the linebacker room. Buffalo's fourth-round inside backer played 16 snaps and looked, in a word, fine. He continues to show off a physical presence attacking downhill, and he looked comfortable dropping into coverage space, showing the athleticism to carry routes down the field. He didn't make a ton of splash plays, but he wasn't caught out of position either, and the physicality is undeniable. Notably, the defensive coordinator told reporters this week that both this rookie and a veteran linebacker have earned the right to play, strongly hinting at some kind of rotation heading into the regular season. Don't be shocked if all three of Buffalo's top interior linebackers end up splitting reps once games start counting. Then there's the fifth-round interior defensive lineman out of Penn State, and honestly, he might be the most fun player to watch on this entire roster. He's undersized for the position, barely over 6 feet, under 300 pounds, with shorter arms than you'd want at his spot, and none of that seems to matter to him one bit. He plays with built-in leverage, constantly operating under the pads of blockers, and he's slippery enough to work laterally down the line of scrimmage to make plays that bigger, properly sized defensive tackles simply can't make. Because he's undersized, he can't afford to let blockers get comfortable hands on him, so he's incredibly deliberate about stripping hands off his frame before locking in and controlling the rep himself. Once he's got that low center of gravity working for him, blockers genuinely struggle to reset. He projects as a rotational piece this season, and on this tape, he absolutely popped. The cornerback competition behind him is fascinating in its own right. A seventh-round pick out of Missouri and an undrafted free agent out of Arkansas are clearly battling for a depth cornerback job, and in this game, the undrafted free agent actually played nearly double the snaps, 46-29. Both players had their flashes, and both players had their misses, including missed tackles on both sides. The seventh-rounder is the more explosive athlete of the two, while the undrafted free agent shows a bit more awareness tracking the ball in the air and has made more plays on it overall, even though he's been shakier when isolated on an island. It's genuinely too close to call right now. And it's fair to wonder if either one locks down an actual roster spot. The punter competition also has a wrinkle nobody saw coming. Buffalo's seventh-round punter out of Florida boomed one gorgeous punt followed by an underwhelming second attempt, then a solid third, the classic rookie punter roller coaster. But here's the real story. He did not hold for place kicks in this game. That job went entirely to a veteran long snapper specialist instead. If this were a truly settled battle, teams typically don't waste holder reps on someone who isn't going to be the guy, especially with the starting kicker working his way back. It probably should end up being the rookie punter holding duties long-term, but clearly there's more to that decision than meets the eye right now. Last but not least among the newcomers is a sixth-round interior offensive lineman out of Texas A&M, and he keeps quietly forcing people to pay attention. He played every single snap of the game, splitting time between right guard and left guard, and while he doesn't offer much positional flexibility, no experience at center or tackle. What he does bring is what can only be described as gravitational pull. He's not the fastest or most athletic guy on the field, but once he locks onto a block, he is remarkably difficult to shake. Heading into the summer, the expectation was that this player gets cut and stashed on the practice squad. Now, there's a legitimate chance he's fighting his way onto the actual 53-man roster. Now let's pivot to last year's rookie class, because a few of those names are turning heads too. Some good, some not so good. Buffalo's first-round safety from a year ago didn't play a single snap in this game, and it's genuinely unclear why. Is it because the coaching staff already knows what they have and he's simply locked in as a starter? Or is a roster battle with another safety more competitive than anyone realizes? It's one of the more intriguing subplots of the entire preseason. An interior defensive lineman from last year's third round played 15 snaps and, frankly, still needs to find another gear. He's got legitimate athleticism and flexibility, and he generated some pressure. But too much of it looked like collective scheme pressure rather than reps he individually won. At some point, defensive linemen have to win one-on-one, and that hasn't fully shown up yet. Contrast that with Buffalo's third-round edge rusher from Arkansas, who was outstanding in this game. He plays with legitimate power, fights for space at the point of attack, and knows exactly who he is as a player. His signature rep of the night came on the goal line against a Cleveland offensive tackle who stands 6'8", weighs 380 pounds, and has arms longer than 36 inches. This rookie got underneath those pads, bench pressed the giant off of him, reset the line of scrimmage, shed the block, and finished the tackle for a loss. That's the kind of rep that builds real confidence heading into a regular season. And then there's the safety, who might be the breakout story of this entire training camp. He played 28 snaps and was electric from start to finish, breaking on the football, leveraging ball carriers perfectly, playing with contagious energy after every single snap. He came up with a beautiful pass breakup, working as a true deep safety in quarters coverage, taking a great angle and knocking the ball away at the last second. But the tape is full of plays that will never show up in a box score. Moments where he forced ball carriers back toward pursuit through sheer effort and angle discipline, even when he wasn't the one who technically made the tackle. Nobody quite knows how he's going to get enough snaps this season with the safety room as crowded as it is, but on pure talent and production, he's forcing the issue. On the veteran side, things get even more interesting. The backup quarterback in this game played extremely well, showing terrific ball placement down the field and real poise handling pressure in his face, never rattled, delivering strikes even as the pocket collapsed around him. Buffalo's lone fullback on the roster showed exactly the kind of physicality and explosiveness you want at that position, putting multiple defenders on the ground and staying active on special teams as well. An undrafted receiver continues to impress with his ability to use late hands on contested catches down the field, a subtle technique that helps smaller, average speed receivers win against faster corners by not tipping off exactly when the ball is arriving. Not every veteran story is glowing, though. One returning receiver had a genuinely frustrating outing, dropping 2 catchable passes, including one where he simply never adjusted his route back toward the football and stood around waiting for a contested catch that should never have been contested in the first place. Meanwhile, another wide receiver flashed as arguably the best gunner on special teams, not named the incumbent starter, using pure physicality to fight through a double team and make an immediate tackle on a punt return. There's also a fascinating backstory playing out on the offensive line. One tackle on his third separate stint with the Buffalo organization after stops with 4 other NFL teams, has quietly outplayed 2 of the team's actual drafted rookies at the position. He's not the flashiest athlete, but he's shown clean, natural technique in those aggressive jump sets that other linemen are still fighting through. Combined with the 6th-round guard mentioned earlier, these 2 unheralded linemen are putting together tape good enough to make roster building genuinely complicated for the front office. Add in a nose tackle who looked like an instant natural 2-gap presence in limited snaps, a defensive lineman who visibly raised his level of play after a veteran was brought in over him, and a depth pass rusher who's flashing juice against both the run and the passer, and you're left with one simple truth: this Buffalo Bills roster has more real, meaningful competition brewing across nearly every position group than fans have seen in years. Offensive line, cornerback, safety, linebacker, receiver depth, even punter. Every single one of these battles could tip in multiple directions before the season opener arrives. So here's the bottom line. Bills Mafia. The scoreboard said 31-7, but the film says this roster is nowhere near finished being built. There are rookies forcing their way into serious conversations, veterans clawing to save their careers, and at least one big injury question mark that could shake up the offensive line depth chart entirely. This is exactly the kind of preseason chaos that makes roster cutdown day must-watch television. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the tape, smash that like button, drop a comment letting us know which player you're most excited about heading into the season. And make sure you're subscribed so you never miss a breakdown. There's a lot more film to study and a lot more roster drama still to come, so we will see you in the next one.